into a Kawasaki KE175. I'm going to tear into the top end. I'm going to go through and test the charging system on here. Going to do the clutches, remove those, and show you how to go through those, and as well as split the case, get into that crankshaft assembly there and that transmission, show you how the shift mechanism works. So first thing we're going to do is pull the cylinder head off here, and the cylinder jug. We've got the reed valve here with the cage in here. This is the intake boot, and then I'll show you those pedals there. We have got a 12 millimeter head bolts around this cylinder head here. We've got 4 cylinder head bolts, and this head is just going to pop right off then. What you don't want to do is get a crowbar underneath here or a pry bar and peel this head off. Very, very easily break these fins doing that. So all you simply need to do is get your hands underneath there, go ahead and lift that up. These are removable. They're little rubber plugs here that'll actually help spread these fins out, keep them from bending if they get hit for some reason or dinged up from the side. That's what these rubber dampers are in here for. We'll set that aside. Obviously, I'll show you what the top looks like there. There's your dome. You can see there at one time, and most of them are like this, where they've been dinged up a little bit by a piston or particles in there. This one's cleaned up very, very nicely, but you can see those little divots there. Obviously, your spark plug through that center hole there. This is what you call the head gasket here, and it is a gasket, a fairly thick gasket that should be removed and replaced every time you tear into this cylinder head. When you torque those cylinder head bolts down, you actually are smashing this gasket. That's why you want to do it in a cross pattern, but you want to smash that gasket evenly. Make sure that all of them are torqued down the exact same, and then once they're smashed down, obviously you replace it the next time, because you can't smash it down and seal it up just like that again. So set that aside. We're going to go now and pull our cylinder head bolts off. 12 millimeter on there, all 4 of those. And then before we remove that, I'm going to show you what this reed valve assembly looks like here. Those are 10 millimeters. And you typically have an oil line coming up into here, coming from your oil pump over here. You can see that oil line through that boot there. You flip it on this side, same thing. This oil line goes into that boot there. I'm going to set that aside. Then we've got our reed valve here with our pedals here. And this is called a cage, your reed cage, your reed valve there. These open and shut depending on the airflow, the amount of back pressure that you have there. So setting that aside, we're now ready to pull this cylinder off. Cylinder's off there. Check that cylinder wall. Make sure there's no boring or major wear or tear on there. You also want to check it for being in the round position. You don't want it oval there. You want to make sure that those are in good condition. You can re-sleeve these. You can bore these out, or you can just buy a completely different cylinder. So set that aside. Here's our head bolts. You've got a cylinder base gasket here. Again, you want to make sure that that gets replaced every time. You want to make sure this is cleaned up. Take a razor blade, scrape that off of there. To remove the piston there, you grab your pick there, get it underneath of there, and pry this out. I like to keep my finger on top of it, just so it doesn't go flying across the room. Take then from the other side and push this pin out. Okay, and then once you get that piston pin completely pulled out, or pulled out that far at least, you can lift that piston pin up. You will have your wrist pin in there, your bearing here. A lot of times when you order a piston kit, a lot of times this bearing will come along with this pin here. That's if you order an aftermarket piston. If you order a stock piston, you'll have to order all of those pieces separately. So make sure that that gets replaced. They're very, very inexpensive, and they're a common wear problem. Just thing to get replaced every time for the price there. So set that aside. Now we've got our crankshaft here. You can see that it moves freely there. Make sure it doesn't catch. Make sure there's no up and down play or side to side. And once you get that checked out, obviously make sure there's no grooving in here. You want to make sure that all those are working properly. We're actually going to flip this motor up now and tear into this charging system.